Welcome to this special edition of 7-Day Yield. I'm Mitch Rochelle. Tax reform was a common theme of most, if not all, of the candidates this election cycle. We sat down with PwC's Vice Chairman and Tax Leader, Roy Weathers, to better understand the issues and explore some of the priorities of the new administration.
Politics aside, both candidates spoke about tax reform, and of course, while they disagreed on what needs to happen, they both definitely agree that change needs to happen. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so tax, as you would imagine, is always a hot topic in any election. And this election was no different. And the reason for that is, if you think about it, taxing citizens and corporations is the single biggest way that governments really raise money and fund themselves. And that's true of the U.S. as well as around the world. And each side, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, have your reasons to deal with tax reform. Our tax code in the U.S. is very complicated and has many, many caveats, and it's ripe for reform. If you're on the Republican side, your sense is reducing the rates, the burden on corporations will allow them to invest and to grow and stimulate the economy. On the Democrat side, most of the view is to deal with things that need to happen to address things like income inequality, et cetera. But both sides agree that tax reform needs to happen.
President-elect Trump has spoken a lot about lowering the corporate tax rate. Can you help put that into perspective for us?
The U.S. has the highest tax rate at 35% for corporations of all the developed countries and all of what we call the OECD countries. And if you look around the world, for example, in the UK, you see where over the last several years, they've reduced their corporate rate from 28% to 20% to stimulate investment, to encourage companies to come into the UK, and quite frankly, make it an attractive place to do business. And so President-elect Trump has indicated that he will focus on reducing that corporate rate, likely in the 15% area. And so I believe there will be a lot of emphasis and a lot of focus on getting the U.S. corporate rate in line with the rest of the world.
We hear a lot about billions of dollars of cash parked offshore, and then there's been some thoughts about how to incentivize to bring that back to the U.S.
Yes, so in the U.S. we have a worldwide tax system as opposed to a territorial system that you'll see in many developed countries around the world. If a U.S. company leaves their earnings that they've earned outside the U.S. offshore, meaning out of the U.S., certain types of income, that income is not taxed. So you could see the conflict of wanting to have that earning and those revenues back in the U.S. and having a company have to deal with a 35% tax on that. And so what's under discussion right now is a mandatory repatriation of those billions of dollars of earnings with hopefully a reduced tax. And I think you're going to see President-elect Trump really deal with that, because there's a view that that could stimulate the U.S. economy if we were to bring those earnings back.
So looking back at history, how long does it typically take for an administration to bring ideas into law?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, it depends on a number of factors. And what I would say is President-elect Trump does have both a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and that will encourage and move the effort forward. What's under discussion right now in terms of the tax reform is the blueprint. And there's a view that we know the House has endorsed the blueprint, but the Senate has not. What's likely to happen is, as legislation happens, they get in, they have some different points of view, and what emerge will likely be different than the blueprint. He has time on his side. He has the momentum in terms of the House and the Senate, and it's likely that something will happen in this window of time to get some tax reform. So we're very excited about that.
It sounds like we have a lot to look forward to.